All right, good afternoon, everyone. I will call to order the Wednesday, October 16th, 2024 meeting of the Capital Area Transportation Authority Board of Directors, and ask our secretary to please call to order. Here. Welcome, everyone. The next item on our agenda is public comment on agenda items. It's the time we set aside during each of our meetings to hear from members of the public on items specifically on this evening's agenda. We ask that you please consider filling out a blue card to assist our secretary and that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and we'll have time to assist you with that. I will call folks who have indicated that they wish to speak on agenda item and what they wish to proceed, and then ask if there are any additional folks who want to speak on agenda items. I have had cards submitted in advance, but it looks like both of them are indicating non-agenda item public comments. So let me just ask the room if anyone who wishes to offer public comment on agenda items. All right, seeing none, then we'll return to the general public comment. That brings us to agenda item number 3, chair's comments. I have just a few items of business this evening. The first is that 3 of our colleagues, Matthew, Derek, and Jack, have requested excused absences for tonight's meeting. I have a motion to excuse those absences. By Phil, seconded by Shanna. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries. Those absences have been excused. Next, you heard in the roll call, and you can see here at the table that we've been joined by a new colleague this evening, Kelly Blackwell from Delhi Township, joining the CATA Board of Directors. So I wanted to pause for a moment and welcome Kelly to the board. We're looking forward to working with you, and without putting you on the spot too much, Kelly, if you want to say. Welcome to the speaking of which, my next item is just a note for the board, although he wasn't able to join us this evening. Stephen Bagnozzi has been appointed to the 2nd Meridian Township seat on our board. So hopefully at our next board meeting, we will be joined by Stephen, which leaves us with just one unfilled seat on the board, the 4th seat for the city of Lansing. Lastly, on a related note, CATA policy requires our annual appointment of committees involved received in advance, and we have a hard copy at your position of proposed committee appointments for the 2024-2025 year. We approve these appointments annually at our first meeting of the year, which is in October, but I'll just note to the board this. These appointments are subject to change based on filling out existing vacancies. So already when we assign Steve Bagnozzi to committees, and then in the near future when we get our last vacancy, we'll have to add that individual as well. But comply with our policy, for the purpose of getting established that we can incorporate the rest of the All right, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, say no. That motion carries. The committee appointments are approved. It brings us to agenda item number 4, our Chief Executive Officer's report. Brad.
Mr. Chairman, how's my volume? Will be okay? Good. One thing I'd like to do before I go through my bullet items, have a special guest here today, Simone. Scott, German, please, I would very much appreciate it. Take your attendance, Scott. Number one, free rides to polls. You may have seen total marketing effort combined with East Lansing, MSU, and the rest of our member jurisdictions. You'll see ads on buses. We partnered with the other two transit authorities in the region to provide free rides to polls. That could also be free rides to get registered to vote as well. So we've put aside some tripper buses in some of the heavier areas, especially university, and anticipating some heavier loads as we get close to and on election day. So we will continue to ramp that up as we election day. Thank you, Lolo. Next, speaking of Lolo and marketing stuff, the MSU parade, homecoming parade is this Friday. If you are interested in walking in the parade, we've over the last couple of events had more and more people walk with the parade. The board, their families are invited to join us. 4:30 at the East Lansing High School is where you can park. I would ask you to let Lolo know that you will be in attendance and march in the parade. Contactless. Last meeting, I talked about contactless doing a soft launch this past Wednesday. We are in final QA/QC checks, basically quality assurance and double checking. And the contractor in our team felt that it was adequate, but we had a couple of bugs that we wanted to work out. So it has not launched. I anticipate in the next couple of days. That's why we call it a soft launch. If we find that we've got bugs, we won't launch a product that is not ready to go. As we gear up in the next couple of weeks, we'll have a larger publicity push for that, but we want to hit the ground and make sure that it is operating successfully. So we anticipate maybe as early as tomorrow that it is in operation, and I will email you and share live. We had a great meeting. Andrew Brisky Hi Christensen representing planning went to Delta Township Monday night. I believe this to be a historic meeting. We were invited by the committee of the whole to talk about a ridership survey that CATA performed on the extension part of the Route 3, specifically to see where people were going. The results were pretty impressive. To no surprise, half of the folks riding the bus on the 3 extension are going out for employment. The areas of employment, the specific businesses, the origins and destinations between the stops were very impressive. And it will help us as we move forward in the next couple of months, deciding how to fund this at a permanent level. The township had the officials and I had a very good discussion about the possibilities moving forward with E-Tran in the next couple of months and doing a service development plan that will be permanent as early as next year. They are excited and ready to have us come back and identify those a la carte items that they would like to invest in. And we've got some ideas for them. So we are queued up to have that conversation. I always end each one of these conversations with after the election. Finally, the Greyhound building, as you know, we have been doing inspection and our due diligence on the property known as the Greyhound building on South Washington Avenue. The first investigation was called a phase 1, and it basically investigates the history of the property and if there are things in there that would lead us to a more detailed environmental investigation. Most properties in the downtown area are going to go into a phase 2, which we anticipated. So we are going to get that. We've already been told that we will be going into a phase 2. And you look at borings in the ground to see what's under there, and you look to see if there are old storage tanks, and you look at asbestos, and you look at all kinds of things that could be a problem with older buildings. So that will probably push the closing into December. This should not be a surprise, and we will continue to keep you informed. The appraisal has come in, and we are in draft form, and we believe that it is right in line with what we offered to purchase. So again, not a surprise, but those are the updates from me, Mr. Chairman.
For comments for Brad on his report, Shannon.
So I have.
We would make available to board members the Route 3 survey. We'll email that to you probably later today. Absolutely.
1 second. There we go. Thanks, Shanna. Other questions or comments for Brad on his report? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Brad. That brings us to agenda item number 5, the proposed consent agenda, which this evening includes 5 items for the board's consideration. Those are the approval of the minutes of the September 9th, 2024 special board meeting, the approval of the minutes of the September 18th, 2024 board meeting, the approval of the treasurer's report for August 2024, an MDOT resolution of intent, and finally, an appointment to the local advisory committee. I will just note before I ask if any member of the board desires to have any of these items removed from the consent agenda to the discussion agenda, that the MDOT resolution of intent as published in your agenda includes one typo that is not present in the version that is in the packet. So the version that we're approving this evening is the version that is in the packet, not the version that's provided on the face of the agenda. Is there any item on the consent agenda that any member of the board wishes to have removed from the consent agenda to the discussion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Moved by Mark, seconded by Phil. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries, and the consent agenda is approved as presented. That brings us to agenda item number 6 this evening, our discussion agenda, which has no items for consideration tonight. Likewise, with old business, there are no noticed old business items for this evening's consideration, which brings us to agenda item number 8, new business, where we'll be hearing a fleet update presentation from our Deputy CEO, Andrew Brisky. But before I turn it over to Andrew, let me ask Brad if you have any introductory comments that you'd like to make.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should note, Andrew wanted to be here. He has prepared this presentation, is excited about it. We asked him not to attend for everyone's safety, and we hope that he gets well soon. He insisted on doing it virtual, which I said, okay. And so Andrew, are you there? I appreciate your willingness to do this. Are you, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. You look pretty good, sir.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Good evening, everybody.
Yes, it's all yours. Go ahead.
All right. Dan, if you're okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Bear with me here. Let's see. Okay, can everybody see the first slide of the PowerPoint? Okay, thank you. Sorry. Well, again, good evening, everybody. My apologies, I could not be there in person. It's good to see all of you again. As Brad mentioned, excuse me, we thought it would be a good idea to update the board on where we stand with our fleet, both revenue and non-revenue. Thanks to all of you, there have been a number of updates and vehicle purchases really since Brad started his tenure as CEO. We took a complete look at our fleet, and admittedly, we were a little bit behind. We had some old buses, and we needed to get caught up. So what I'd like to do this evening is briefly run down each vehicle type, kind of give you a sense of where we are today and where we've come from over the last 6 to 10 years, but also where we're going, and hopefully um, impart on you the notion that we've really come a long ways, but we've got a long way to go. So let's just get into it if you don't mind. We'll start with our fixed route fleet. Currently, we have 105 active fixed route buses. This includes 93 40-foot buses, 12 articulated buses. I should point out that 12 60-foot Artics are really, it's an ideal number for us operationally. We are somewhat limited on where we can take these buses for length and weight restrictions on various roads in the system. So 12 is kind of that sweet spot. Again, 93 40s, 12 Artics. Of that 105, 63 of those buses are clean diesel. I point out clean diesel because some of you may remember nearly 20 years ago now, Craig Allen would take the white handkerchief to the hybrid exhaust pipe of a new bus, and it stayed a nice clean white cloth. Well, the new diesel buses, you could do that as well. The bus you see on the screen here is one such newer diesel that we have. Large buses have a federal life expectancy of 12 years or 500,000 miles, whichever comes first. When you eclipse one of those thresholds, then we can actively start pursuing a replacement for that bus. I should point out our average miles per year on fixed route hovers right around 36 to 40,000 miles per year on each of our large buses. Thanks to the efforts of Dan Hodges, our maintenance director, and his team, we've brought our average fleet age down among large buses to about 7 to 8 years across the fleet, which is really, I would say, above average when compared to other fleets of similar sizes. On our directly operated Spectran, some of you already know we only operate cutaway buses or small buses in the directly operated fleet. Currently, we have 34 of them that are active. We have some that range as old as just a few months, all the way up to 10 years old. Federal life expectancy on these vehicles is 7 years or 200,000 miles. I should point out that when you look at our small bus fleet, we drive a lot, especially when compared to other properties. Our small bus fleet is averaging 35,000 miles per year, and we somewhat regularly use up the life in these buses by miles well before they age out. So for instance, we currently have some 2020 model years that are well over 200,000 miles on them already. Our non-revenue fleet is of equal importance, in my opinion. We have 40 non-revenue vehicles housed at Tranter. That 40 number breaks down to 6 facilities vehicles. These are primarily pickup trucks used for plowing snow, hauling trash from bus stops, moving shelters, etc. We also have one large van. You may recall approving that action item several months ago. We just took delivery of that new van about 3 weeks ago, and it is already out in use. The maintenance team have 2 pickup trucks. One is equipped with a lift to move heavy parts to various vendors, so engine blocks, transmissions, etc. The other truck is equipped to actually push or pull 40-foot buses if they get stuck in the snow, if they need to get moved around the yard. It's a heavy-duty pickup, essentially. The administrative fleet consists of 9 cars. We are in the process of transitioning both our admin fleet, and our transport vehicles to all EV. Again, thank you. Some of our recent purchases included 4 Chevrolet Bolts that were added to our transport fleet. And we got another slide coming up where we'll show you some purchases that are forthcoming. But again, the admin fleet and the transport fleet is in the process of being transitioned fully away from gasoline to electric vehicles. We did have some hybrids thrown in as kind of a bridge until we were able to buy and provide infrastructure for the EVs. The EVs in the transport fleet have uh, been widely accepted by the operators. Heard many positive comments. We have not had any issues with range or vehicles getting stranded. And again, thanks to Dan and his team, very successful deployment of the EV vehicles. On the contracted fleet side, I know our friends from Transdev are here. Simone and Scott, thank you very much for coming. Um, For your consideration, we have 19 cutaways. These are the small buses that we operate here out of our Trantor facility as well. Transdev primarily uses those cutaway buses for rural service or the connectors. They also operate 54 low-floor minivans, similar to the van you see in the top right. These are Chrysler vans that have been converted to have a lower floor. Um, some of you may be aware that Chrysler offers a hybrid version of that van. Unfortunately, we could not equip the low floor spec with a hybrid powertrain because as you see that ramp there coming out the sliding door, that is where the battery pack goes. And since the floor is lower, there's no room for those. So we are still buying gasoline minivans. On the bottom right, you see a new vehicle to CATA. Um, some other agencies, both urbans and rurals, are operating these large Ford Transits. You recently approved an action item to buy 6 of them. These will all be operated by Transdev, our contractor. And the idea is really to find a vehicle that more accurately fits the capacity needs on the rural service, but also it moves Transdev toward a fleet that does not require CDLs. These vans can be driven by anyone with a chauffeur's license. 6 of these are on order. 3 of them are fully electric. Some other upcoming orders that you should know about. First, on our fixed route fleet, we have 2 40-foot battery electric buses on order, one from Gillig and one from New Flyer. The Gillig bus, I just met with our sales rep this morning virtually, and he assured me we are still on time to have our electric bus from Gillig delivered probably in late May. I say probably, but he confirmed it was hitting the line first week of May. Interesting note too, he pointed out that they plan on driving that bus here. That's relatively new for them. They usually flatbed the vehicles to the transit properties, but they intend to drive ours out to Lansing from Livermore, California, just outside of San Francisco. The New Flyer bus, by the way, is slated to be built in fall of 2025, but both are on order. We have pointed out to you in the past that we really want to get a sense of how these fully electric buses operate in our system. However, as you may have caught on, there's a long lead time to get these buses, and we can't forget about the continual need to update our fleet, meaning our other fixed route buses. We will be coming back to you for consideration of another large bus purchase. This would be part of our ongoing replacement efforts to replace buses that are aged between 2010 and 2016. Current funding will allow for up to 9 large buses, 40-footers. On the directly operated paratransit side, we currently have 14 cutaway buses on order. These are off of the MDOT contract. It's already been vetted by the FTA. The pricing is fixed, and the buses have really proven to be very popular with some of the new features on SpecTran and other paratransit services. So 14 on the way. We should start seeing those as early as later this month, part of the order, and then the other half of the order will come probably around January. On the non-revenue side, we are continuing our transition to fully electric transport vehicles and administrative vehicles. Three Chevrolet Equinox vehicles will be ordered by Halloween. Total price will be below the board threshold, but these vehicles are typically around, our price is around $40,000 a piece. On the contracted side, we currently have 8 low-floor minivans on order. We will start seeing those arrive early November. As I mentioned, the 6 large vans, and since they will replace the cutaways, there are no slated or anticipated, I should say, orders for cutaway buses for our contractor. There are some things to consider as we continue to buy new vehicles. One of the most glaring considerations is what's going on within the industry with respect to large bus manufacturers. Some of you may recall Nova Bus is leaving the U.S. market. In fact, I had the privilege of touring the factory when our buses were being built in upstate New York. I know Brad joined me a couple of times. Great experience, but unfortunately that factory is closing by the end of this year. That leaves only New Flyer and Gillig. I just got word today on some increased lead times. Typically, a diesel or a hybrid bus would take about 12 months from the time of the purchase order to the time of delivery. We are now being told it's 14 to 16 months and potentially longer if the bus is fully electric. The cost, as with many other things, continue to go up. For a ballpark reference, a 40-foot straight diesel bus right now, like our Novas that we most recently procured, we purchased those for approximately $690,000 a piece. A 40-foot hybrid version, regardless of the manufacturer, is between $900,000 and $1 million. And a fully electric 40-foot bus, like the 2 we have on order, both are coming in just shy of $1.3 million each. Conflicting projects. So as you know, we use primarily federal funds to buy our vehicles, but there are many capital projects in the pipeline, including facility remodels, IT considerations for new projects, be they cameras on buses, contactless fare payment. In fact, we had a capital committee meeting today. Thanks to Dustin and his planning team, we're making sure that we're not just looking next year, but 3, 4, 5, 6 years out to ensure that we can make our money go farther and be responsible in how we spend it. The range of the new vehicles, regardless of the vehicle type, the range fluctuates based on, of course, climate and the environment in which they operate, but also what we're finding out is it's also based on how much we're willing to spend. So, for example, we were asked when we purchased our electric 40-foot, do we want 3 battery packs or do we want 8? Do we want 5 or do we want 7? So, of course, more batteries, the further they travel, but more cost, more weight, more maintenance. Facility upgrades. Last month, I'm thankful to you for approving facility upgrades and architecture and engineering work to our Tranor facility to ensure that our buses can be safely recharged and stored indoors out of the elements. We have ever-changing needs, as with other transit properties, make sure that our fleet matches our service requirements. And we also want to make sure that we stay on the cutting edge of technology, not necessarily on the bleeding edge of technology. And lastly, as recently as yesterday, I had a nice conversation with some of our union mechanics, as well as our operators, and making sure that the training standards are in place and that we don't just have employees kind of be thrown to a new bus and expected to know how to operate it. We take a lot of pride in making sure they're prepared to work on those vehicles, but also operate them. Finally, as I come to a close here, I want to talk about a couple of goals as we move forward in our fleet modernization. Of course, we want to make sure our vehicles are safe and reliable. We want to align the fleet needs with available funding. As I mentioned, there's many competing projects, and we want to make sure the fleet stays at the forefront and staying safe and modern for our entire operating system, not just big bus or not just small bus, but across all of our services. We want to, of course, be focused on the emission reductions and the goals set forth by this board and our staff to be responsible stewards of the environment and provide clean transportation in a responsible way. Dan and his team in maintenance do a great job of making sure the fleet is maintained, but that takes money, it takes time, it takes training. I'm confident that thanks to his efforts, we are well positioned to make sure our existing fleet, the older buses, but also the new ones to come, will be well maintained and something you all can be very proud of. We want to keep looking at alternatives as well. While the large bus OEMs seem to be shrinking in terms of number, the alternatives in terms of fuel types, tire specs, ADA options, driver functions, things that make their job easier, safer. We want to make sure we're incorporating in a responsible way all of the new alternatives that come to market. And lastly, I would point out in similar way, we talked about the smaller vehicles for Transdev. They're no longer operating, or soon will no longer operate cutaway buses. They're going to be operating smaller, more efficient vans. That's not just for our contractor. We have a responsibility to look at our directly operated fleet as well. And our staff continues to do that with your help and support. So that is kind of a summary of where we're at, where we are going, and I'd be happy to take any questions you might have. Thank you.
So thank you, Andrew. We appreciate the very thorough presentation. Let me ask if there are any questions or comments from my board colleagues for Andrew on his presentation. Shanna.
Okay, there we go. Andrew, can you just talk a little bit about the training that we're doing, particularly on the maintenance side, but I suppose it applies to the driving, as we are shifting to some of these newer vehicles, EVs, and what that looks like. Are we able to have that training now trained in-house, or are we requiring sort of external training for that? And is that readily available in the state as this?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So with respect to the training, as some of you know, we have a dedicated maintenance trainer, Randy Pettit. Yes, the short answer, yes, there is training readily available. Randy has already reached out to General Motors, for instance, to bring in some people with firsthand knowledge of how the electric transport cars were built to ensure that the mechanics know where the danger spots are, know where the critical infrastructure is with respect to how power is delivered to the wheels. On the bus side, we have incorporated extensive training programs into the initial bus purchase. So for example, when you go through what's called a build sheet or bill of materials, there is kind of an a la carte menu for training, be it mounting wheels, fixing brakes, repowering the bus from the battery pack to the drivetrain, electric motors, safety, do's and don'ts. I'm proud to say that Dan and his team basically checked every box on that a la carte menu. The training will be incorporated with the purchase of the bus. I'm speaking with respect to the large ones, of course. And they will not be released into service until those training protocols are completed. But the OEMs, at least with respect to Gillig and New Flyer, are fully prepared to bring their techs and engineers to Lansing so that our team will get firsthand knowledge of how to maintain that bus and how to do it safely.
Go ahead, Brad.
And Andrew, apologize for embarrassing you and Dan and Mr. President, but I think it's also important to recognize the enthusiasm that our mechanics have brought to the table. In fact, I don't want to embarrass Don Bean, who is our senior mechanic, but he has jumped in on these hybrids and has, to my understanding, for a second time done a complete rebuild of a hybrid engine, which is like pulling Excalibur out of a rock, my understanding is. So we've got other agencies that come and train with us to learn. It reminds me of high school in biology. You go up to the smart people that get all the notes. Yes, and so very proud of the frontline workers and what they've done because they have really jumped into the new technology and gotten good at it. Thank you, sir.
Give them like a second. All right, thanks, Brad. Other questions or comments for Andrew on his report? All right, seeing none, I think it probably would be beneficial, and I'm sure this is not a big deal to do if the slides were circulated to all of the board members. I saw some folks frantically taking notes, but it might be beneficial for folks to have that slide back since it was very thorough. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, everybody.
And we hope you feel better soon.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, that brings us to our second and final public comment opportunity this evening. This is the time we set aside during each of our meetings to take comments from the public on any CATA subject. Same parameters as before. We'd ask that you please consider filling out a blue card to assist our secretary and that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. We'll have a timer to assist you with that. I will call the blue cards in the order in which I've received them and then ask if there's anyone else who wishes to offer public comment at this second and final opportunity this evening. And I'll ask, thanks, Danny, I've got the mic ready to go. We'll start with Laura Bressi. Brees, thank you.
Just a couple of things real quick, and that is one of the issues I've been dealing with is that I'm not sure to explain this, but the other main, I already talked to Craig about the one problem. The main issue is that some of the people that we ride with, they don't understand. They keep putting us in different, we are going opposite directions. We live opposite directions that are near each other. I'll let you know why you had to put it on the same bus together. We're going opposite directions. I don't understand that. This just doesn't make sense. She lives, this one passenger I can tell you real quickly is that she lives way out past Lansing Mall. I don't live in that area at all. I live on the other side of Lansing. Why do they keep putting us together? That doesn't make sense. That's my main issue I want to talk about.
Thank you for your comments. The next card I have is from Daniel Black. Mr. Black?
Seeing as how this is the comments at the beginning of the meeting, I just want to remind all the board members to eat the microphone for the following meeting here. And then I want to thank Dan and Lola and Damon and Brad for the reasonable accommodation with the hearing that they set up for today. But as I found out, this room has excellent acoustics. And while some of you are not eating the microphone, others of you are, I can hear great without the accommodation. But who's not to say that you don't have it on hand, especially when you move back to the governor's ballroom. Please, this room has excellent acoustics in my mind as compared to the governor's ballroom. The governor's ballroom acoustics, you know what? Yeah, thank you for that accommodation today. You four, if not more folks. Then moving on to loading on a fixed route bus and possibly other operations as it relates to disabled or handicapped folks. I would appreciate some consistency in the loading techniques and the unloading techniques. Some drivers go to the back of the bus to load before the disabled passenger even gets on, and then other drivers follow the disabled passengers, so that I don't know what to expect. And the same for any other operation as it relates to disabled, handicapped passengers. And then just as a reminder to me, I'm not sure if a visual clock is up there. Is it up there? Is that visual clock? Oh, that's right. You're not able to respond to me. Okay. And audience members tell me if there's a visual clock up there. You're allowed to respond to me. There's not a clock up there. Maybe a clock. Yeah, maybe a clock, like Lansing City Council. Or maybe Nathan telling me that I've gone over time is the only, because East Lansing City Council has 30 seconds warning. And Lansing, City Council has a visual clock that I can see. So Nathan still hasn't said anything.
Say,
So,
you have gone over time, but I'm letting you finish your thought. Go ahead.
oh, okay. I'm done.
Thank you.
You could have told me earlier.
I was trying not to cut you off. Thank you as always, Mr. Black, for your comments and your suggestion. It's a good one. Is there anyone else who wishes to offer public comment at this second and final opportunity this evening? This is the second. All right. Being no one then, and there being no further business to come before the CATA board, our meeting is adjourned at 4:44 p.m. Thank you all.